excerpt from the End of Molasses Classes audiobook describes my views on loving what your students love. If you're aware of what the kids are into, whether it's iCarly or Twilight, you can relate to them on a different level. Eliminate boundaries in every way possible. Number 3. Define your expectations and then raise the bar. The more you expect, the better the results will be. I am a firm believer that you get what you expect from people, and the higher you place your expectations, then the greater the results. As I have traveled around the world learning about education, I am always blown away at the level of academic expectations other countries have of their students. I believe it's because the other countries want to position themselves to be where the United States currently is in terms of the world's economy, and they have realized that focusing on education is the way to achieve that goal. When I have traveled through our 50 states, however, I have not seen the same picture. In many cases, I see teachers who are lecturing in monotone voices, students who are falling asleep, and work that is far too easy. The students are learning only out of a textbook, and there is no movement, no life, and no passion. Where I see other countries teaching to their brightest and really pushing their young people with a high degree of expectations, I see our country teaching to the middle and rewarding mediocrity. We have an education system in the United States that isn't tailored to meet the individual needs of its students. It's a watered-down approach to educating the masses and herding children through a system that is geared toward quantity over quality with a focus on basic standards instead of having an expectation of excellence for all. When I first started teaching, I told a 4th grade teacher that I was struggling because there were so many kids of different levels in my classroom. There were gifted, average, low, and a heavy dose of low. Without hesitation, she said, "Teach to the middle, because if you make it too hard, the low ones won't know what's going on." I decided to give it a shot and to focus on the average students. After a week or so, I realized that the smarter kids seemed bored and were starting to cause discipline problems. I met with a mother about her son's behavior, and she said, "The reason he is in so much trouble is because he is bored. The work is too easy." I am sure that it is a sentiment felt by parents all over the country, but in this case, she was definitely right. I was sacrificing his needs for the students who were at the lower end academically. I asked myself, why should we sacrifice the gifted ones to meet the needs of the lower students? If we as a society continue to sink all of our funds and resources into making sure that not one child is left behind, where will our country be 20 years from now? Other countries are pushing their brightest and raising expectations, and we are placing our greatest attentions on making sure the needs of our struggling students are met. Quite honestly, y'all, I was really bothered by it all. I wanted to find a way to address the needs of everyone, but it's nearly impossible when you have a class of more than 30 kids with a full range of abilities and discipline problems. Because I had to be honest with y'all, when I look at my class, and I've got all different types of levels, who am I drawn to? I'm sure every teacher listening right now has the same answer. We're drawn to the kids who struggle. My heart bleeds for them. I want to go help those kids. I think it's our natural instinct because we love them, and to see them struggle, we can't stand it. But the problem is, if we're all putting our attention there, we're doing a disservice to the brightest kids, and I wanted to do something. I decided to make an attempt to focus the content of my lessons on the high achievers. I decided that I would find the brightest child in my classroom and make sure that he was challenged on a daily basis and hold every child in the class accountable for that same level of achievement. I knew, however, that I'll be setting the rest of the class up for failure if I didn't find a way to excite them to find the harder learning fun. If you are really going to hold every student accountable for the highest levels of the curriculum, then you have to figure out a way to lift the students up to that level. You just can't set the bar high, sit back and say, "Get there. You got to find a way to pick these kids up to that level. For example, the first year at RCA, my 5th and 6th grade classes came to me averaging better than 39% of the nation in math on the Stanford 10. That's an achievement test administered in public and private schools across the country. So in other words, they were only performing better as a class than 39% of the nation. I realized that most of the class wasn't even on grade level, so I said to myself, I'm going to teach them 8th grade algebra. Keep in mind, these are 5th and 6th graders. And when I told the staff at RCA what I was going to do, they said, Ron, come on now, you're setting those kids up for failure. But I said, nope. The more you expect, the more you get. You will see, I will get those kids up to the 8th grade algebra level. But even if they don't quite get there, I thought, the gains they will make will be enormous. They still told me it wouldn't work because I was skipping too much content, but I told them I was sticking to my guns and that it would work. I started teaching that year 8th grade algebra. I went in there like a tornado on fire and ready to get the students up to that level. And y'all, you know what? It did not work. Oh my goodness. Yep, I skipped too much stuff. I had students crying and parents complain, and there was a general lack of positive spirit and excitement in the room. It was a crisis. The students were looking at me as if I was speaking in another language. But you know what? I could have easily dropped the level of expectation back to their current grade levels, but at RCA, we have a personal philosophy that you should never lower a goal. When you lower a goal in order to make sure students will find success, we call that hollow success. Yeah, you were successful, but could you have achieved more with greater expectations? We feel that you should always go for the higher goal, realizing that there is always a way to get there. The road may not be comfortable, and you may have to work harder than you expected and be willing to change your methods and techniques, but we feel there is always a way to make it happen. Keeping that philosophy in mind, I left the goal where it was, 8th grade algebra, and decided to figure out a way to get the students to love my classroom. I've always said that if they enjoy your classroom, then they will enjoy the content you are teaching. In order to make that happen, I often try to find whatever it is that the students love at that moment, whether it's movies, songs, or athletic teams, and I use those topics in my class to enhance the lesson. At the time, their favorite song was Umbrella by Rihanna. They loved that song, so I decided to change the lyrics to apply to the order of operations, which was essential to know if I was going to teach the students how to handle the long radical equations we were attempting to do. My version went like this. When we begin together, parentheses first, now please be clever. Exponents come right next in line, gonna multiply and divide at the same time. Now subtraction and addition, walk it out with computation. It's the order of operations. It's the order of operations. Ations, A plus order of operations, Ations. Anyway, I know I can't sing, but the kids went crazy. They loved it. They sat up straight in their seats and looked eager and excited. They thought it was the coolest thing ever, and they were anxious to learn the chorus as well as all of the other verses of the song that dealt with how to handle the algebra problems. The next day, they showed up for class, eager to sing the song and to work on cool movements to go along with it. I saw in their excitement a window of opportunity. I told them that we would gladly sing the song at the end of class if everyone focused and concentrated the entire period. Boy, those were some attentive children. They were ready to go. Every student sat rapt with attention, and as I taught the lesson, I explained what each line of the song meant and how it would help us learn. The students would collectively go, "Oh," and nod their heads in understanding. At the end of class, we sang the song together, and I let them come up with dance moves and hand signals for division, Cuban numbers, and other aspects of the song. When class was over, they all moaned and asked if we could stay longer. I told them they had to go, but that we'd get another chance the next day. When they arrived the next day, they didn't walk in, they bounced into class. I let them know we'd sing it again at the end of class if they all tried hard during the lesson. No one seemed to mind a bit, and they all earned the chance to sing the song again. The next day, the same thing happened, only this time when they sang the song, it wasn't really singing a song, it looked more like a Broadway production. The students were really letting loose and choreographing the coolest moves. Oh, it was incredible. The end of that week was our first educator visitation day ever at RCA, and at the end of the math lesson, I thought it would be cool to show the visiting educators the song we had learned. I asked the educators to come to the front of the class. The music started, and the kids took over. I still remember standing there and watching the faces of the visiting educators. The kids looked so sharp, happy, and full of passion for algebra. They were singing their hearts out, and some of the kids were so excited that they jumped up on the desk, continuing with the dance moves from up above. It was organized, wild, and beautiful. When they finished the song, the educators erupted into applause. The kids and I kept tossing one another glances that said, "Wow, they really liked it." When one of the teachers asked a student what he loved most about RCA, he answered, "I love algebra class because it's fun and challenging at the same time." That child came to RCA scoring better than only 4% of the nation when compared to other fifth graders. In other words, 96% of American fifth graders did better than he did, and his favorite class was algebra. Wow. Throughout that year, I continued to find ways to make that class fun. We used colored chalk to work out algebra problems on the sidewalk. I played the Mission Impossible theme in the background as they tried to work the challenging problems in 60 seconds or less. And I used football stats, food challenges, and more songs to make the class fun. When the students weren't trying their hardest on the board work that started each class, I gave each child a balloon and magic marker. They worked the problem on the balloon, and after 60 seconds, the students with the correct answers got to sit on their balloons and pop them. I had to use tricks like that a lot, but it kept the energy and excitement for the class high, and the students were always excited to see what would happen next in algebra class. And at the end of the year, we received the end of grade scores for the 5th and 6th graders. On the Stanford 10, the 5th and 6th graders scored on the same level that the average 10th grader would have scored on the test. As a class, they outscored 86% of the nation. That is a 47-point increase in the group's percentile score, and those familiar with the Stanford 10 will tell you that is an incredible feat. They will also tell you that in order to have a class's percentile that high, you can't have students scoring in the single digits. And that is the best news about the scores. While the high-performing students almost all scored in the 99th percentile, that means that only 1% of all students taking the test did as well, the students who came to me with scores ranging around the 3rd, 10th, and 11th percentiles were now scoring in the 65th percentile, 77th percentile, 80th percentiles. By teaching to the top and not lowering the expectations of the entire class, all of the students benefited. It was an incredible validation for where our goals should be in every classroom, and it set a tone for high standards leading to outstanding results throughout our entire school.